Hey everybody, what's going on? It's James here. Wanted to sit down and shoot a quick Bitcoin update video for you because I did see a comment where somebody was asking for my views. Surprised you guys even want my views at this point. I've been wrong so much this year, but let's get into this thing. We'll talk about it in a logical fashion without all the emotion and FOMO, and we'll see if we can't maybe make some predictions about what might be coming in the future. So before I jump into the content, please do me a huge favor, hit that thumbs up button. Make sure you subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And of course, don't forget to check the description for links where you can support the channel as well as join the Patreon. So first things first, guys, in no world did I see Bitcoin going to $23,000 in 2020. So before anybody says, oh, I'm going to troll this guy, well, I'll beat you to it. I was wrong. Dead wrong. Okay? Couldn't have been more wrong. I've been waiting for this correction all year that has not come. Now, I'm going to go into some reasons why I believe that is in this video, but it doesn't matter why it is. All that matters is it didn't come. So we have to look at what's in front of us and kind of play it from there. So first things first, why 23K? I don't know. I don't know why 23K. What I do know is that if you draw a trend, an uptrend from March of 2020, and you draw it to the first local top that happened up around 12K, this is where, if you remember, I was calling for a correction. I said the local top was in, and then when it came down, I was one of the few people, and this is ironic, but I was one of the few people that said I did not think it was going to fill in the CME gap at 9,600. I thought that 9,800 was probably the local bottom. We were going to move back up toward 11K. Had that part right, had the 11K part dead wrong because it just kept going up. So I didn't long it down here because I viewed this as probably the start of a correction. And I thought, okay, we'll get a dead cat bounce. I'll short it and then write it down. In fact, what happened was I shorted it, and I can't say for sure, but I probably got stopped out and lost money. So bummer, right? But once it started to move back up and took out this old high, then a new trend came in play. And I did talk about this in a few videos. I just didn't think it was going to happen. It was like one of those, yeah, this is possible, but I doubt it kind of things. I had a trend target up around 18.4K. We blew through that. So then I really started to question, like, what is up with this, So then it was kind of like, okay, well, maybe we'll get to 20K and then correct. So we got to 20K and we started to correct, which I'm going to talk about this correction in just a second. And then all of a sudden this crazy stop hunt. So I was not completely out of tune with this because in the last video I did, which was, 3 or 4 days ago, I had said that it looked like it was coming in down and trying to put in a double bottom, and that I felt like we were probably going to get some type of bear squeeze. But when I said bear squeeze, I meant to like 19K, maybe like 19.4. I did not mean 23K or 24K. That's not what I meant. So again, just like back here where I was right about the drop, just like back here where I was right about the bounce, I played it from the bear perspective, looking to short the bounce instead of looking to long the dip. The end result was I lost money on this pump. Now I made more money than I lost because I still had the HODL portfolio, and of course it went bananas, right? So if I'm wrong and this thing just keeps going up, it's, not a huge deal, fine. It's also not a huge deal because even though I lost money on Bitcoin yesterday, I made money on Boeing, had a really good day trading Boeing. So, it's give and take, but it's a little bit, frustrating when the market gets like this because it really leaves you in a tricky spot because it's like you don't really want to keep shorting it because you're getting in front of a moving freight train and you keep getting ran over. But at the same time, it's really difficult to justify a long position on a market that is now pumped 400 or 500% with no meaningful corrections. We've had these little 10% dips, but those are not corrections in my mind. 516% is how much Bitcoin's pumped since March, right? Those are dips. 10% is a dip. It's not a correction. A correction is, usually looking at 30 to 50%. So we've yet to hit the golden pocket on any meaningful time frame. We just hit golden pockets on these smaller time frames. So I guess the first thing I want to say is I want to give you some tips that you can watch for in the future, because one of the reasons that you might have wanted to long this back here, and I actually did long it, but I scalped it. Just like I longed 19.1K, but then I set a trailing stop loss and it actually got hit at 19.3K, and then it just went up. So it was kind of one of those things where if you're wondering, wait a minute, you said you were short. I was short, but I had a long position that was hedging that short because I felt like it might go higher. Got stopped out of the long hedge and then was just exposed in a short that got stopped out. But if you were watching this and you're wondering what is this purple box all about, if you're looking at this saying this is an uptrend, yes, it's correcting, you might have been tempted to long this on more of a swing trade instead of a scalp, because I missed this. I didn't see this until about, I don't remember where price was exactly. I think it was up around 18K when I noticed this, and I was like, oh shoot, right? It's too late. I didn't want to chase the market at that point. But had I noticed this, it did come down. It did make what it was essentially a weird double bottom, and it did it right on the 61.8. And if you've been watching my videos, you know that for the last 3 or so years, I've been preaching about taking positions when the market puts structure in on or around the 61.8. And that's literally what I was talking about, and I missed it. I just didn't see it. Probably because I was blinded by my bear bias, just looking for the bounce, right? But essentially what happened was you had a double bottom on the golden pocket and up it went. Now, I'd like to see something like this in a macro time frame, right? If I wanted to get macro bullish on Bitcoin, but on the smaller time frame, that was a legitimate swing trade, a legitimate long that I should have taken, right? Instead of scalping it. So for you, if you're wondering, what the hell good does that do me? Well, nothing right now, but it will do you good in the future if you remember to watch for that kind of stuff, right? In fact, I can show you the exact opposite of that. And like I said, guys, I really hope to do a little bit of teaching in this channel and not focus so much on predictions, because predictions are like belly buttons. Everyone's got them. And number two, trading is not about being right all the time. I was once told that the best traders in the world are wrong half the time, right? It's about using proper risk management and playing the probability over the possibility, okay? So if we look at the dollar index, look at this brutal thing. And this, I'm not all that worried about Bitcoin going up without me. But I tell you what, if there was something that did concern me this year and has left me extremely frustrated, it's the dollar going down with me, right? A lot of my assets are liquid right now because of everything going on with COVID. I decided to move a lot of it to liquid positions. And the problem with that is I've been exposed to this dollar dropping all year. Instead of being hedged with gold or Bitcoin, I do have some Bitcoin, I do have some gold, I do have some silver, but the majority of it was unhedged. It was just sitting there in cash. And as a result, when I say cash, obviously I mean in trade accounts and bank accounts, etc. I don't literally keep cash on hand. But it came up, and now it's trying to put in a double top on a macro level inside of its golden pocket. It hasn't confirmed the double top yet, but this looks really bad. Really, really bad. And this could be one of the reasons that Bitcoin is pumping so strong. I don't believe it's the core reason, but I do believe that it's probably one of the reasons that you're seeing some of these large companies, allocate hundreds of millions of dollars in some cases to Bitcoin, because they're trying to find a hedge against the dollar losing its value, right? And gold is not performing near as well as Bitcoin right now, so there is that. But yeah, that's what I'm talking about. If we flip it upside down, what I'm wanting to see on Bitcoin, what I've been wanting to see all along was this. It's like, is this too much to ask for? I wanted to see it have a correction, put in a nice double bottom in the golden pocket, and then I would be bullish. But it hasn't done that. It hasn't done it at all. and it's made trading it tricky business on a macro level. I mean, yeah, there's people who are blindly longing it, and more power to them. That's their deal, but that's not trading as much as, you know, gambling. Listen, there's also investing. And investing is different from trading. And investing, you know, you're looking at the long-term outlook. You're not worried about, will this go down? You know, will this go down 5% or 10% or 20%? You're looking at, do I think it will be worth more in the future than it's worth today? So, for example, one of the mistakes that I made in March, and I'll keep this short, but bottom line is, I started confusing an investment with a trade. Most people do it in reverse. They get into a trade, they get greedy, they decide, no, I'm going to hold this, and then the trade goes against them, they lose money, and they're like, shoot, why didn't I take profits? I did it in reverse. I had an order that was sitting there for 9 months for Bitcoin, and then the price hit, but before it hit, I canceled the order, right? Because of COVID and everything. And my thought process was, I don't want to get stopped out of this. But the thing is realistically speaking, if it's an investment, you don't normally put a stop loss on it. So I could have invested in Bitcoin. And if I would have stepped back and not been emotional, and obviously in hindsight, it's easy to see that I was emotional, COVID really had me concerned. So concerned that the funny story is I was actually looking at buying land, like 30 acres, and like starting my own food production because I was that worried about COVID. So yeah, I got a little carried away with that. And that was one of the big reasons I didn't want to risk money on Bitcoin. But, you know, if I looked at it logically and without emotion, I could have said, look, if I buy Bitcoin at $4,000, even if it goes down to $500 or $1,000, do I think in the long run, Bitcoin will be worth more than $4,000? And I think at that point, I probably would have said, yes, absolutely. Even if I didn't think it was going to go to 20 grand, 50 grand, 100 grand, you know, I figured it would probably bounce and fill in the liquidity gap that it left behind on this massive drop back here, right? You had this whole open air gap and a liquidity gap. So I'm not sure what I was thinking, right? Logically, it was like, worst case, I could have seen Bitcoin going back up to 9 grand. So, you know, woulda, coulda, shoulda. That's life, okay? But yeah, as far as the market goes right now, you know, this was a very cliche pullback to the 61.8. And if you look at, if we look at the 6-hour chart, if I can find my 6-hour chart, I'm a little curious, or we can turn this into a daily, it'll be a little easier to see. I am a little curious, maybe we just put in our top, local top, okay, not macro top, because right now it's in an uptrend and you can't really call macro tops. But when I look at this, there's your up move. Here's your first, you know, little pullback, whatever you want to call it, because here it just grounded sideways. And then you have your trend continuation. And realistically speaking, you could have taken a trend trade on this. And again, this is a teaching thing. If you wanted to trade with the trend and you believe this was an uptrend, one way to do that is to simply enter a trade when you break the 23.6, right? So you draw these pivot extensions and then you enter a trade when it breaks this. So the way that works is you can enter a trade and you can put your stop down here at the 0 level. And then you put your profit target up at the 1. Now, in this case, if you look, that's a 3-to-1 risk reward. That's a completely legitimate, great trade setup. And then the way it works is if you follow the rules of this type of trade is when it gets to the 50 level, you move your stop from 0 to the 23.6. So now worst case, you break even. And then when it gets to the 61.8, you move your stop to the 50. And then when it gets here, you can move your stop here. And then here you can take profits or keep riding it. So if we look at this trade, as it moved up to the 50, we could have moved our stop to even. And then as it moved up to the 61.8, we could have moved our stop to 50, wouldn't have got stopped out. As it moved up to the 78.6, could have moved our stop to 61.8, wouldn't have got stopped out. As it moved up to the 1, we could have taken profits there, or we could have moved our stop to 78.6. If we took profits, could have taken profits at 18.4, or maybe we would have got stopped out at 16.5. Anyway you cut it, would have been a really, really good trade. I didn't take the trend trade, even though I saw it, because again, when this pulled back to 9,800, I felt like it was going to bounce up to 11K and then move down, right? So when it moved up and broke the 11.8K, I was still sitting there pretty skeptical. and then the next day it had this huge gap. So of course, I don't want to long on top of a gap, right? So again, hindsight being 2020, it's like, well, duh, that was an easy trade to take. But in the moment, wasn't that easy, right? Wasn't that easy. Or maybe it was. Maybe I was just too bearish, who knows. But as this thing has moved up, it's chopped through level after level, and with this great big parabolic climb over the last couple of days, it has now made a perfect touch, and I mean almost perfect, of the 1.618 extension, which was 23,774, and it got up to 23,776, so within about $2. So when you're in new all-time high territory, there's no resistances to look at because there's never been a price at that level. So that's where these trend extensions come in. You can start looking at the trend extensions as levels of resistance. And so far, that has been a level of resistance. Will it hold? Guys, I don't know. I just don't know anymore, right? I don't want to get off on a tangent and talk about all the things I've seen because it comes off as me making excuses, and I'm not trying to make excuses, but trust me when I say that I've watched massive spoofing going on. You can get a membership to a site called Trading Light if you want. You can watch it for yourself. You can literally watch them putting in these huge orders and then pulling the orders right before they fill. And spoofing is illegal in most markets for good reason, because it tricks retail traders into taking positions that the market makers want them to take. Well, in crypto, what they've done is they've pushed this price up, and then they'll pause it and they'll wait for shorts to load up, and then they'll push it up and liquidate the shorts. And they'll use that spoofing to push that price up. And yesterday they were heavy on the spoofing. So I do think the move is a very manipulated move. It doesn't guarantee that it's going to go back down, but it's very manipulated, and it's definitely something that you want to be aware of. Again, even if the market is not legit, and I really don't think it is, but even if the market's not legit, it can still go a lot higher, and you can still make a ton of money in this market if you know how to protect yourself with proper risk management, when to take profits and all that sort of thing. You don't have to fall victim to the market. You can play it, make your money, and get out, right? So, or, you know, if you, I mean, just set stops. I mean, that's really what risk management is. You know, if you want to hold Bitcoin forever, by all means, that's your deal. You can do that. But yeah, right now, 1.618 is kind of that level. As far as shorting the thing goes, you know, I firmly believe it's going to retrace. I firmly believe that, you know, we will head back down and fill in a lot of these liquidity gaps that we've left behind. I feel like we will go down and probably fill in a good portion of this volume profile. It's just a matter of when, okay? If we put the volume profile on there for the entire Coinbase history, it looks really wonky. It's got a point of control down on $600. But if we take that off and we put a volume profile on there just for the range, right, from, we can say, the bottom of 2018 to the top here, it looks like this. Our point of control is going to be right around $9,600. Okay, we could also say, okay, well, let's not worry about all that. Let's just look at the move from March, and if we put a volume profile on there for that, then we can see that our point of control is right here around 9,200. So somewhere between 9K and 10K is the point of control on this thing, right? And you can see, put one on there for the visible range so it's a little easier. If we get the visible range from March, there we go. Okay, well, let me put this on a 3 day so it's easier to see. Good Lord. Okay, you can see that we just have a lot of dead air, complete dead air down to 19.3, and then mostly dead air down to 12K. The real point of control is down around $9,200. Then we got gaps down here. So I do feel like it's more than likely it will come down and fill these in. Now, people are going to say, James, you're crazy. It's $23,000, bro. You got to stop with this. It's not about being bearish, guys. That's not bearish. That's just it. In a bull market, you still have corrections and you still have deep retracements. And historically, Bitcoin likes to retrace to its golden pocket. You know, it's like a broken record, I know, but it is what it is. I'm just telling you how it normally behaves. It's not a guarantee it will do it. But if we put the golden pocket on there, now that we've moved to 23K, our golden pocket has drastically changed. And our golden pocket is suddenly down around 11.4K, right? 11.5K. So maybe it goes down there, throws a tail down, fill in some of these gaps, and maybe it moves up from there. You put a weekly 19-week moving average on there. Let's get rid of the volume profile because it's going to keep moving as we move the chart. But if we put a 19-week moving average on there, which has been a really good line for bull markets, it's still sitting down around 14K, right? So we're completely out of control of this. You know, what we're seeing here, this pump, it's actually more ridiculous than the pump back here. I mean, it's literally a $20,000 pump. We didn't have a $20,000 pump back here, right? We had about a $15,000 pump. So we have now pumped $20,000 without any deep retracements. So, you know, it doesn't mean it can't go further than that. I mean, it can always go up, just like it can always go down, but we are really far off those moving averages. I still expect we're going to get some type of deep retracement. But again, remember that I'm not chasing this market. I'm completely okay never owning more Bitcoin than I currently own. So for me, I don't lose sleep over this, like, oh, what if I miss out, right? If it doesn't go down, what do? I just don't buy more Bitcoin. It's not a problem. There are plenty of investments that I can put my money toward, right? On the other side, if it does go down, do I buy more Bitcoin? I really don't know. I really don't know. It depends on what the structure looks like. If it goes down to the golden pocket, let's just say hypothetically that it went down to 11.4K, would I buy more Bitcoin? I would at least buy back the Bitcoin that I sold down around 13K. I would buy that Bitcoin back. I probably wouldn't buy back the Bitcoin that I sold in 2019, right? I don't know that I'll ever buy it back because it was double-digit Bitcoin. And quite frankly, I don't feel secure trying to invest $200,000 in a cryptocurrency. Probably just buy back, you know, what I sold, maybe get 1 or 2 Bitcoin. And then, you know, if it goes up to some extremely high level someday, great. And if not, you know, it was a justifiable risk. But that's kind of how I'm looking at it. On the smaller time frame right now, if you're looking to short this thing, I would just say be careful. It's a runaway train. What I'm going to watch for is what I should have watched for all along before getting super bearish, and that's capitulation, right? Back here we have bears capitulate, and of course price reversed and moved down. Back here we have bears capitulate, and of course price reversed and moved down. Back here we have bulls capitulate, and of course price reversed and moved up. So this whole idea that I've been waiting for this correction, quite frankly, it's probably not the best piece of analysis that I've done. I really should have waited for a blow off top. I really should have waited for some type of wick to say, hey, the bulls are exhausted, and then started looking for that move down to the golden pocket versus just waiting and waiting and waiting for this move that so far hasn't come. All right. So I know that doesn't do much for me in the past tense, but moving forward, it's a lesson that I'll learn from. And the thing is, guys, I've only been doing this for 3.5 years, a little over 3.5 years now. And I get better and better, right? Every year I look back and say, what mistakes did I make this year? And I take those mistakes and I try to learn from them and I try to improve the next year. The one thing about trading that's amazing is it's not like in my previous businesses where things were always changing, advertising was changing, and your new competitors are popping up, and this and this and this and this, right? Trading is trading. And as you learn a skill in trading, it's a lifelong skill. You get to say, oh, okay, I'll remember that for next time. And then you implement it. And this is the thing about trading that, you know, I really love is I feel like it's one of the most secure types of income there is. Now, some people will disagree. They'll say, are you crazy? No, I'm not crazy, right? I've had jobs, and let me just give you a rundown on this. I don't want to get off on a tangent. Guys, I had good jobs, right? I was a really good salesperson, and so I tended to get jobs. In fact, a weird fact, I never interviewed for a job that I didn't get, ever. Every single interview I ever took, I got the job. Every job that I had, I excelled at. So the last job that I had was working for a corporation, and I was one of their top 1% of their salespeople in the entire country. I was making great money. I was part of a union. I had a really, really nice retirement package. I had free, literally free health insurance for my entire family. All these things that you think you're supposed to have that makes you set for life or whatever you want to call it. And I felt secure. And then one day I came to work and the union was talking about negotiations and this and this and this. And all of a sudden they cut not just my pay, but everybody who started after XYZ date. We all got a 40% pay cut for no reason, through no fault of our own. So that security was ripped away from me, and all of a sudden this lifestyle that I had built, I couldn't sustain it on this new pay. That's literally what made me become an entrepreneur and decide to start my own business, because I felt like I needed to be in control of my destiny. So then I started businesses, and I started a couple different businesses. Some of those businesses didn't go so well. Some of those businesses went extremely well. My better months in business, I was making over $100,000 a month. Not a year, a month. I had days where I made over $50,000 in a day. You would think to yourself, well, that's it right there. Why would you ever do anything different? Well, quite frankly, because in business, it was a constant struggle. It was, yes, this month we did $100,000. That's awesome. When I say $100,000, I mean profit. I don't mean the bullshit numbers that marketers, oh, I did $100,000. Oh, you mean you sold $100,000 and made $1,000? I mean $100,000. Take home, put it in the bank. Okay, that's what I mean by $100,000. I'd have a month like that, but then when the next month started, it was the same thing. It was a rat race. It was trying to get the right ads. It was trying to get the right customers. It was trying to write the right emails. It was trying to, do all these things that were constantly getting harder and harder and harder, and more competition. And it was super stressful, right? Because I always knew or always felt like I was having to start over every 6 months and learn a new skill, learn this, that no longer works. Now I got to do this. This no longer works. Now I got to do this, right? And in the back of my mind, I always thought, no matter how much money I make, eventually this is going to come to a point where it's not sustainable and I can't keep doing it. And so for basically about 7 years, I stressed out because I was trying to make this certain target where if I had this much money, everything would be okay. And I just worked like a dog, right, for a lot of that time. Then toward the end, some things happened. The last couple of years I was in business, some things happened where it kind of was like a wake-up call. I separated from my wife because I was not present with my family. I was always working. And some other things happened, and I decided to kind of realign my goals. And I hired somebody to run that business. And then I started working about 5 hours a week. I basically retired for the most part. And I paid them a good amount of income. They ran everything day to day, and I would check in like an hour or two a day, and that was all I did. And so then I went with this really heavy, balance toward life versus work. But still, it was always like I would start getting stressed out because the business was doing poorer and poorer and poorer without me there at the helm, so to speak. So when I found trading and I realized, wow, I can learn about trading and I can implement this trading stuff and just get better and better and better. And then every year not have to relearn stuff, but just keep adding on what I already know. It's been probably the most peaceful type of income I've ever made. Even though I've never made as much trading as I made in business. I've never had $100,000 profit month trading, right? I don't know that I ever will have a $100,000 profit month. I'm not trading with budgets that would allow me to take that type of risk. I've had some really good months, right? I've had months where I've made well into the 5 figures, but I've never had a 6-figure month trading. But the difference is I know that whether today, 6 months from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, whether I'm 70 years old, as long as I still have my health, my vision, and my ability to type, so to speak, I will always be able to extract money from these markets. And that changed the goal from I need XYZ dollars to I'm there. I've reached this point of security where nobody can take it away from me for the most part. There's obviously flukes, right? Health could take it away from me, or who knows? Something could always happen. But for the most part, I don't rely on customers. I don't rely on a job or a boss that may or may not be there tomorrow, right? I just rely on getting better at what I'm doing. And so that's what I would tell you is if you want to be a trader, don't look in the rearview mirror in a sense that, oh, I'm sorry I missed out. look in the rearview mirror in the sense that, okay, what did I do wrong and how can I get better? How can I make sure that I don't make that mistake next time, right? So for example, like me with this year, big takeaway I took away from this year was zoom out, number one, right? Make sure you're not letting emotions cloud your judgment, number two. And number three, don't let your trading affect your investment strategy. They're not the same thing. You know, you look at this chart, and if this was a 1 minute chart and this was anything, it was a stock, it was Forex, it was precious metals, it was crypto. If this was a 1 minute chart and I saw this come up like this, come down, come up, and then come down with this tail, I would be longing there on a trade, not an investment. I'd be longing there with a stop loss at the bottom of this tail. That's, if it was a 1 minute chart, that's how I'd play that, right? It would look something like that with a profit target up here. But on a monthly chart, for some reason, I decided to ignore what I knew worked and not play it that way, right? Instead, taking profits down around 6,000 or 6,900, whatever it was, on the long that I took, which was a much smaller long than it should have been in the first place. So those are the things that I learned, and we're in December, and so it's a good time to reflect back and say, you know, what did you do right? What did you do wrong? And that's what I did wrong this year, right? I got way too wrapped up in COVID. And the other thing that I did this year, I learned a lot about the stock market, because day trading the stock market, I still didn't know much about it, right? So I started to really learn about the stock market. And one thing that I noticed, guys, and this is like a really, I mean, it's an easy signal. Watch this. So if you went and you looked at the fear and greed index back in March, and again, if you weren't, you know, like me and blinded by your fear, and I didn't feel like I was fearful, because when I was looking at the market, I wasn't selling my assets. I wasn't being shook out. I wasn't like, oh my God, it's going to zero. You know, what do? I didn't have fear like that. And I guess that's why I didn't think I was in fear, because I was pretty rational about it, right? I was just like, okay, it's dropping and it is what it is. And I took the long and everything, but I had more fear than I realized, right? But if I just looked at this chart, I could have drawn a horizontal line and noticed that every single time the stock market has gotten to this level in the last couple of years, it's been followed by a really nice relief bounce. Again, that wouldn't have told me to long Bitcoin and expect 23K, but it would have made me feel much more comfortable longing Bitcoin and waiting for that gap fill up around 9K. And then at that point, I would have been so well in the profit, it would have been a lot easier to say, okay, well, I'm going to let this ride a little bit and see where it goes, right? So keep an eye on these charts like this. The other thing I started watching here recently was I started watching this site Coin Analyze, right? This is something that somebody pointed out to me just a few weeks ago. I like this site a lot. And what I noticed was if you start watching the shorts and longs and liquidations, it can give you a pretty good signal on what the market is going to do. So for example, you go back to last month in November, and on November 26th, the market actually liquidated $902 million worth of Bitcoin longs. The bulls were completely devastated that day. Now, if you went to social media, of course, everybody's an expert and everybody wins 100% of their trades, and nobody likes to admit they're wrong. And of course, they weren't caught in that. These were just other retail caught in that. But obviously, bulls were punished. But if you look at a chart, what happened after November 26th? November 26th was right here. So if you'd along that and said, well, they've washed out the bulls, they're probably going to go after bears next, you could have caught either a nice swing trade, or maybe you'd still be in the position and be up 30%, right? And then you go look at yesterday. They liquidated $535 million in short positions, and they liquidated so far today $422 million in short positions, meaning that they've now liquidated close to $1 billion in shorts. So knowing that and seeing that, that tells me I probably don't want to be long Bitcoin right now. What I want to do is watch for some type of pullback or some type of dip, some type of correction, whatever you want to call it. And maybe, and I don't know, but maybe if we do get a big pullback or a big dip, maybe we finally get that capitulation wick that I've been looking for, where December ends up with a giant wick like these previous tops. And then I can start looking for that retracement down to the macro level at 61.8, right? There are still those people that believe this is a D leg and this is probably going to go down to 1K. At this point, I don't see this thing going back down there. Okay, I just don't see that happening unless the stock market crashes. I think you have to look at this as a bull market. No matter how much it's spoofed, no matter how much scammy stuff is going on, you can't argue with the 500% pump and keep looking for these huge pullbacks. At this point, for it to go down to like 1K, for example, it would have to drop 95%. I don't see that happening, right? Unless we have an absolute stock market disaster, right? I don't see it going back down to 3K. I don't see it going back down to 4K. I just don't see that happening. It's taken out the all-time high at this point, okay? So I think you got to play it as a bull market, and if you're drawing Fibonacci levels as a bull market, that retracement is going to put it back down around 11K, and that might be the level, right? Could it go lower? Yeah, it could. This is definitely a parabolic climb. Parabolic climbs tend to retrace about 80%, and that will put it down around 1,700. That level would make me feel much more comfortable investing because there's actually some liquidity gaps down there, and it would be wonderful to see those actually get filled in, and then it'd be like, okay, we're probably in this next run. But overall, it's been a good year. I've definitely enjoyed the year and had a lot of fun learning a lot of new stuff this year. And, hopefully next year I do even better, right? That's the name of the game, is just improving. This year, I really dialed in my setups. So it's been really helpful, to know, hey, I don't got to trade based on a guess. I don't got to trade based on, I think this is going to do this or I think it's going to do that. I just wait for the setups and I trade those setups. They work more often than not. They're not 100%. Nothing is, right? I shorted it yesterday and I got stopped out. Got stopped out 3 times. Won 1 trade and lost 3 yesterday on Bitcoin. I won 10 trades on Boeing yesterday and lost 1 trade on Boeing, so that made up for it. But yeah, it's end of the day, guys, you can invest in Bitcoin, and if you're investing in Bitcoin, I'm probably not the right guy to really follow because I'm not a big believer in it. But if you're trading Bitcoin, that's more my speed, right? That's more what I'm into it for, is moving in and out and trying to build my fiat balance. Although right now I'm starting to question that strategy quite a bit. I had an idea, and I haven't pursued it yet, but I had an idea a few weeks ago where I was going to buy gold with a certain amount of my trade fund and then literally trade gold against Bitcoin so that I was always in one or the other. So I was always hedged. Either I was in gold or I was in Bitcoin. But I haven't done it because there's not an instrument that I know of that lets you trade gold for Bitcoin. So what I have to do is I have to put money on the site where I want to buy gold, and I put money on the exchange where I want to buy Bitcoin, and then I have to buy gold and sell the Bitcoin, and then buy Bitcoin and sell the gold, and it's actually double the trades, and it's a little bit quirky, so I haven't figured out the logistics of it, but I am seriously considering doing that, trading Bitcoin versus gold instead of Bitcoin versus US dollars. So if I do that, I'll do some more videos on it. Okay. Other than that, this video is certainly getting much longer than I expected. But I just want to say patience pays off. It's very difficult to be patient. I know it's very difficult to be patient. And there's no guarantee that this thing is going to go back down anytime soon. There's really not. But again, if you're trading probability over possibility, it's possible it goes to $1 billion. Highly unlikely, but anything is possible, I guess. But it's also possible it goes to 0. Also highly unlikely, right? I just want to wait and look for value investments. If I'm investing on a long time frame, I want to wait for it to come down. I want to wait for it to retrace. Even if it goes to 30K first without me, that's fine. Eventually, it will retrace. It's only a matter of when and how far it retraces, okay? So hopefully if you're feeling stressed out, maybe I offered you a little bit of peace. As always, though, I would remind you that I am just some guy sitting in a spare bedroom. So I could be wrong about all this. I've been wrong before, and I will be wrong again at some point. I'm wrong every week about something. So keep that in mind. You should always do your own due diligence and seek out professional financial advice from a licensed financial advisor before making any type of investment in cryptocurrency, the stock market, or precious metals. If you enjoyed this video, be sure and give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. And of course, don't forget to check the description for links where you can support the channel, as well as join my Patreon or join my trading course if you'd like to learn proprietary trade setups. If you just want to learn basic TA, don't join the course. Go out there and find sites like Bybit. It's free and teaches you really good fundamentals of technical analysis. The trading course is really for those people who want to trade setups. I have, I believe it's 5 different setups that I've created. I trade those setups religiously, and they are proprietary setups. That's the real value in that trading course, is getting setups that are rinse and repeat formulas for trading. All right. As always, thanks for watching the video, and remember to please trade safe.